USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My name is Jonathan J. Banks. I'm a retired Marine Master Gunnery Sergeant. I was field artillery pretty much my entire time in the Marine Corps. I joined the Army in 1979, and I did 3 years on active duty. I got out in 1982. Soon after getting out of the regular Army, and I was in the National Guard until one day I decided I want to go back on active duty, and so I went and I joined the Marine Corps. And my father was a Marine, 1952 to 56. And as you're well aware, that's during the Korean War. Well, he was only 17 years old, so he was too young. You had to be 18 to go to the combat zone. So they put him on sea duty, a seagoing Marine, and they put him on the USS Curtis, which was the flagship for the Atomic Energy Commission. So he participated in Operations Wigwam, Operation Red Wing, and Operation Castle. Castle was the big ones. And if I remember correctly, Wigwam was the submarine torpedo atomic weapons. And what was kind of interesting about this is that even before that, in 1917, I believe, my grandfather joined the U.S. Navy during World War I. Well, he got cashiered out after the war was over. He tried his hand at armed robbery and he wasn't any good at it. So he went to prison for a few years. He got out, and somehow or another, he walked into the Marine Corps recruiting office in 1927 and joined the United States Marines. And he was here in, basically guarding naval stations here in the United States, I believe up in New York. He was able to somehow or another get sent to China, to Tientsin up by Shanghai, China. And so he went through the brand new Panama Canal, ended up right here in Mare Island. And then from Mare Island, they take the USS Henderson and went to Shanghai and was in for a few years, but he got out in 1932. And he died in 1948 at 49 years old. Since I went back with the lineage, I can also talk about my son who joined the Marine Corps. He was an air winger fixing helicopters in 2009. And then he got out in 2015. I retired in 2014. But the interesting note is that my son and I both served in Afghanistan at the same time. I was the Sergeant Major for the Afghan Commando Brigade up near Kabul in a place called Rish Kvor, and he was down south at Camp Dwyer fixing on helicopters. Alrighty, well, as I said, I joined the Marine Corps in 1984 and was sent to Parris Island. I did my time in Parris Island boot camp, then I was sent across the country to 2nd Battalion 11th Marines at Camp Pendleton at a little camp called Camp Las Pulgas, which is Spanish for the fleas. I did about a year and a half there. I was just a new guy. And they needed Marines over in Okinawa, so they sent me to Okinawa. And I did a year in Okinawa. I was married, but I was unaccompanied for that 1 year, so it was a lonely year. And then I got sent from there to 4th Battalion 10th Marines over at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And I was there for 2 years, but what was interesting about that deployment, that enlistment, end of my enlistment, was I was sent to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, I think it was 3 or 4 times to operate in DEFEX, defense exercises. And we went down as artillerymen, staying at Cable Beach, and shooting artillery. I got fascinated with the nuclear ordnance program. They did nuclear ordnance for artillery. It's called tactical nukes. So I re-enlisted for a 4-year stint doing nuclear weapons. And so I was no longer really field artillery, I was a nuclear ordnance technician. And I worked with the backpack nukes, nuclear weapon, the nuclear projectiles for 8-inch howitzers, for 155 millimeter howitzers. It was quite an interesting 4 years. And that had me do a year in Okinawa at their ammunition supply point. And then I came back and I went to 5th Battalion, 11th Marines. And I was there for about 2 years, and they were moving to Pendleton, and I wanted to stay in 29 Palms for some reason in the middle of the Mojave Desert, where the training is fantastic for artillerymen. And so I went over there and transferred over to 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines, which was part of the UDP, the Unit Deployment Program. I did some time, about 4 years at 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines in the Unit Deployment Program. I really enjoyed Okinawa. And I stayed there for a couple of years, about 2 years. When 9/11 kicked off, I didn't want to sit in the bleachers in Okinawa. That's how I missed the Gulf War, because I was a nuclear ordnance technician. So I pulled some strings and got sent back to, you guessed it, 29 Palms. And from there, I was there for about 2 weeks, and then I sent to Iraq, and we did convoy escorts and security and stuff like that. And I was there February 2004 to September 2004. A lot of interesting things happened while I was over in Iraq. But then I came back, and we went back to 29 Palms, and we had to implement new howitzers. We got rid of our old howitzers, and we implemented new ones. So I was the very first battalion of artillery to get these new howitzers. And so had to train all these cannoneers on the duties of a cannoneer. And that took it took several months and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to relearn artillery for this new system. And then from then, I got promoted. I was a master sergeant, and I re-enlisted to go back to Okinawa. This time I did another 1 year tour, which turned out to be about 2. And I ended up coming back to 29 Palms. I got promoted, Master Gunnery Sergeant. And what was kind of funny, interesting about this, I believe in efficiency and time management. I got married, promoted, and re-enlisted all in the same formation out there in between the buildings at 3rd Battalion, 11th Marines. The battalion chaplain married us. The battalion commander promoted me and re-enlisted me. And I re-enlisted for Camp Pendleton to go be the field artillery chief over at 11th Marines, the regimental field artillery chief. What was really fascinating for me about that wasn't all going to doing artillery stuff, but it was running the artillery training school and training young men to be cannon section chiefs on that fairly new system, which by now had computers on it. I also taught machine gun. I taught NCOs to be machine gun instructors and to be team leaders, if you will, on machine guns. And I also taught a local security chief course, which is what a staff sergeant does in field artillery. The cannoneer staff sergeant, platoon sergeant, is in charge of local security for the entire unit. I got sent to Afghanistan for a year, and it was a high-risk assignment. I was the sergeant major for the Afghan Commando Brigade, which I wasn't a snake eater. I was basically the camp commandant. But also, I was the mentor for the Afghan Commando Brigade Sergeant Major, a fairly young fellow. His name escapes me right now, but he was a snake eater. He'd been fighting in Afghanistan since he was 7 years old, and just quite an interesting fellow. But I also was the director of the Afghan Commando Brigade School there in Rish Kvor, Afghanistan. And I wasn't so much teaching classes as I was in charge of the retired military folks, a lot of special operations guys that were teaching weaponry and tactics, techniques and procedures. Very interesting tour. And then from there, I went back to Pendleton for about 2 weeks, got briefed back into being in the States, and then went to my last duty station, which was Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I was the director of the Marine Corps Cannoneer School. And I'm back to being in charge of schools again for artillery. There was the Cannoneer School for entry level. There was the advanced course for staff NCOs, we'll say mid-level, and we also taught the rockets, the HIMARS, High Mobility Artillery Rocket Systems. And after I had left, they now teach the section chief course that I had taught over at Camp Pendleton. And then I retired from there, and after retiring, I went to school here in San Francisco on the post 9/11 GI Bill. I went from being a high school dropout to being a Summa Cum Laude honor graduate in business management. I had a little money left over, and I kind of like learning, and I like the school environment. So I got an MBA with an undeclared minor in industrial psychology, and my concentration was in business analytics. After school, I just kicked around for a little bit, and about a year after I graduated, I got a call and asked if I was interested in applying for a position here at Marines Memorial. I wanted to be part of the Marine Corps, but I'm just too old and too set in my ways to be in the Marine Corps. And so being part of the honor, commemorate, educate, and serve those veterans and currently serving folks, it seemed to be a perfect fit. And here we are about 2.5 years later, talking to you.
Doing what you asked for, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. I didn't do too bad for a high school dropout from Jacksonville, Florida.
And as far as your own personal feelings about honoring the military of this country and all that have served already and maybe paid the ultimate price, but thoughts about how the country needs to understand their veterans and what it takes to be a part of the military.
Well, I have a fairly sarcastic response to that. While so many of us went to war, the rest of America went to the mall. And I'll tell you what I mean by that was that nobody here was drafted. Nobody was kicking and screaming to that recruiter office, which was literally open to everybody. But those men and women that crossed that threshold and went and spoke to that recruiter or that officer selection officer to become a commissioned officer in the military, I've got nothing but crazy respect for them, because when their nation called, they answered that call. And to be honest, like myself, I didn't have much choice. I could bag groceries for the rest of my life, or I could join the military, and I was quite good at it. And I was fortunate to have served with some really fantastic soldiers and Marines, and doing some joint duty stuff, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and even some Coast Guardsmen. I've served with these folks, and they're top notch. And most of them they come from an average background. Nobody comes from a superstar military background. They come from an average background, and the military turns them into superstars. These are folks that are serving now that are leaders in that capacity, are tomorrow's leaders, whether we're talking about in business, industry, or even politics.
And we'd like to always have someone who's talking to us say what their thoughts are about how important it is for veterans to share their stories.
I think veterans sharing their stories is critical mass. Number one, to learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't make the same mistakes, whether you're active duty going into a combat zone, or you're just another veteran and you can learn from people that stumbled and tumbled after they got out, and you can learn what not to do, but also the networking aspect, especially here at the club and hotel and the membership of the association. You have a networking opportunity to talk with folks that are quite successful. There's for every horror story in combat, there's usually one or two really funny stories to veterans. Civilians and our mom may not think it's funny at all, but we do have a sense of humor that's not easily understood, including my wife. What's wrong with you? I'm currently the membership director for the Marines Memorial Association and Foundation. I've been here about 2.5 years. The Marines Memorial Club and Hotel is based in San Francisco, California. I'm actually the curator for this establishment also. The Marines Memorial Club and Hotel started off in 1926 as a Western Women's Club. And in 1941, this building was commandeered, if you will, by the United States Navy and became the Wave headquarters. And they were farming out the Waves during World War II to the different Navy bases that were here in the Bay Area. And then in 1946, the Navy wanted to get out of the hotel business, if you will. And so our commandant bought this building and turned this into a living memorial to honor those servicemen that had fought in the Pacific. Well, this building has been remodeled, I am sure, several times. If we start off on our lower lobby, we have a full-service fitness center and a 25-meter lap pool. If you go up in the hotel lobby, when you come right off of the street, you'll notice many displays honoring different aspects of military life, whether it's the women Marines, the African American Marines from World War II, the Montford Point Marines as they're called. We honor Waterhouse, retired Marine that is famous in the art world with bronzes and paintings. We also honor our Gold Star parents. They have their own separate display, and that is for the parents who have lost children, mostly in Iraq and Afghanistan. And then each floor, the second floor, we have the Marines Memorial Theater, and we also have the Flying Leatherneck Lounge there. Once again, it's a Marine Corps thing, so we have a bar up there on the second floor also, and we hold events there, and the theater has events there also, so that place can really get jumping. If you go to the third floor, you'd see that's our commandants of the Marine Corps and our sergeants major of the Marine Corps, and that floor is dedicated to all of them from 1775 to the present day. If you get up on the fourth floor, it's currently the Medal of Honor floor, but we're turning that into part of our comprehensive campaign. We're turning that into a dedication to the United States Marine Corps. When you step off of the elevator, you're going to step onto the yellow footprints, just as you would do at the recruit depot in Parris Island or San Diego. If you get up to the fifth floor, that's our Navy Cross floor. It's not all the Navy Cross recipients, but it's a very nice representation out of many recent Navy Cross recipients. Then if you get up to the sixth floor, that one is just phenomenal. It's the World War I dedication. And almost everything there, be it posters or flyers or whatever, and ribbons and badges, whatnot, there's no reproductions really up there. If there is, about 5% of them are. The seventh floor is currently our memorial hall, which we have plaques that folks could purchase, and we'd hang them up on the wall in memory of someone that passed away or in honor of someone that's still with us. That program's no longer up and running. We had to close that down because we pretty much ran out of space. As soon as you step off the elevator, we're honoring Joe Rosenthal, the gentleman that was with the Marines that raised the flag on Iwo Jima. And the eighth floor is representative of the Fleet Week, and it's just a bunch of photographs and memorabilia that's honoring Fleet Week, which is still a big deal here in San Francisco. And then on the ninth floor, we have, that one is dedicated to all the bases that used to be in this Bay Area. And there's a lot of old maps, a lot of old photographs, and it's really just a fascinating floor to look at. And so many of these places now are either federal parks, state parks, or something such as that. And then on the 10th floor and the 11th floor, those are event spaces. And what's really interesting about all these event rooms is that if you go there and look, each one of these rooms and the hallways, the chandeliers are different. Each room, each hallway. And then if you get up on the 12th floor, that's where we have Chesty's Bar and Grill. One of the things that's really interesting to note is that we have a professional piano player on Fridays and Saturdays. He plays a baby grand piano. He wears a tuxedo, and it's just a fantastic place to hang out and listen to some popular songs from back in the day or even current. and enjoy a meal or have a drink at the bar. And the views are spectacular. Our motto is to commemorate, educate, and serve. We commemorate those that served before and came before us. We educate those, mostly civilians, on the role and the sacrifices made by the servicemen and women of today's armed forces. And to serve, we try to help out those that are currently serving. We are pretty heavily involved with the Gold Star parents of Northern California. And that fits into that commemorate, educate, and serve. And they're a fantastic group of ladies that run that. And I'm in communication with them quite often to make sure that when we do that event, that it's worthwhile and it's worthy of their respect and honoring the lost loved ones. The Marines Memorial Club and Hotel is located at the corner of Sutter and Mason, just about 2 blocks down from Union Square. An interesting fact is that just recently, the 600 block of Sutter Street was renamed Joe Rosenthal Way, the famous photographer for lifting the flag on Iwo Jima.
San Francisco is honoring a well-known photographer. City leaders dedicating a street to Joe Rosenthal, who took a famous photo during World War II.
Ryan Curry shows us how Rosenthal was front and center to document some of the city's and the country's historic moments.
We see the photo and we see the history. U.S. troops planting the American flag at Iwo Jima, marking a critical point in what would soon be the end of World War II. But we don't talk about the man who took that photo. On Thursday, San Francisco etched his name in the heart of downtown.
San Francisco's modern history is inextricably linked to World War II.
The photographer is Joe Rosenthal. He took one of the most famous photos in U.S. history, and he also captured plenty of moments around San Francisco.
An incredible eye, really part of the ethos of San Francisco.
City leaders dedicated a part of Sutter Street in his name. His daughter Ann says Joe loves San Francisco.
Very honored that, and of course wish my dad were here to see this. He gave up life and career that he could have had in New York. And once he saw San Francisco, he just fell in love with it. I think not only its beauty, but the people.
He spent 35 years with the San Francisco Chronicle photographing as much as he could.
To have this block of San Francisco dedicated to his work and to him, it's the best.
Only the best for one of the city's best photographers. In San Francisco, Ryan Curry, KCRA 3 News.
What was interesting about Joe Rosenthal was he was quoted, and I'll paraphrase, is that yeah, I may have took the pictures, but the Marines took Iwo Jima. And again, that picture, Secretary Forrestal had said that flag raising means the Marine Corps for the next 500 years.